Good evening from the Hostage Diaries, night of the Golden Globes, where I am a little bit jaded and jealous to a degree that I was not. Well, the problem is in order to facilitate my suffering for as many people as possible, it's like that old saying, more money than God. Well, they took that to heart. So 99% of the, I don't know, I can't say the world, because I kind of feel sorry. See, I'm trying to make a statement on certain levels. So my self-deprecation is also factual evidence to a degree of the state of affairs. When we're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar state, theoretically, with enough evidence to certainly um, utilize a investigation into the estate itself. So, the self-deprecation is on multiple levels of, And so I kind of feel bad because I know the world is in a terrible, terrible state. But the problem is, I mean, they are utilizing me, the reverence to all these certain factions and empathy. Oh, the empathy. Sponsored by ExxonMobil, who's worth, what, $1 trillion now, while I still can't even afford a gallon of gas. So I refine a lot of it. Lyle Tiger in your tank. Juan Valdez, same company. DDB, Madden. Omnicon, now. One of the big advertising conglomerates. You have Tiger in your tank and Juan Valdez. And then the Exxon Valdez. Woo, what a coincidence. In Prince William Sound. Back there. And the problem is obviously they had to point out the fact that I was a bad. See, locally, they'll beat you down. They don't want to give you a cent. They won't give you anything to go on. But internationally, I'm worth a lot. And so certain factions are using me internationally and my family as negotiation or credibility or extortion leverage, while locally they try to convince, that's part of the brainwashing, they got to convince us to hammer us down deep into that grave. So the self-deprecation stick, or whatever it might be. Like I said, a lot of what this is stick with a little bit of realism. It's that gonzo reality, whereas I am trying to understand my sense of reality through espousing multiple levels of theory. Theory is what I go with. And I would love to have the facilities to investigate and figure out whether or not these theories are factual or not, because you could make a lot of money off of them. But certain people don't necessarily seem to care about that because they are using me in other capacities. That's the clean handlers, They don't necessarily, they got smart because I am we are such high value. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars of assets. So, you've got some dedicated handlers that that are as clean as can be in order to keep a sterile environment, in order to. It's like when they used to talk about the mob always insulates the layers. Well, clean, sterile handlers is an insulated layer to protect those, but yet there's still levels of control pertaining to agendas that are obvious. But see, the agendas are. There's a lot of hijacker agendas that go on with me, and obviously having a a telepathy handler, they have to steer, otherwise they are implicated. And so there are certain factions of the mob that are trying to steer the clean handlers into becoming dirty on certain angles of exposure, and they've done a good job of that because the clean handlers that obviously were not there for their strategic ability to strategically plan. They were just there to, they left, they should have changed handlers long ago. That's why we're in the state of affairs that I'm stuck in a multi garage worth of billions of dollars while a lot of people are using me for a lot of money. New sign up on the wall there. And it deals with the 1978, which seems to be a big year. Year of Animal House, Delta Tau Chi. The 178, my initiation number, 1978. And if you put the 1 and the 7 and the 8 together, it looks like a door next to a window. You put a 9 in there. Hey, Animal House. Wow, hey, miracle, huh? Funny. Then there was something called The Big Sleep, a Philip Marlowe novel there. TBS, Big Sleep. And Dawn of the Dead was the number 9 movie in the box office that year, which is appropriate. Dawn of the Dead, Walking Dead, a George Romero pick of very similar. I mean, like I said, this is just facts. What it means, I don't rightly know. It's just their facts. For interpretation, I just connect the dots. Oh, that's a pretty spiraling coincidental tangent there, isn't it neat? And how those coincidences sort of work out in that way. So we utilize it. Or I will use it as filler. Filler. Might be some incendiary material regardless of the flammable nature of truth. Truth tends to be flammable if it is aligned. It's like a fuse, fuse of truth, aligned to the big conglomerate of lies or facts, whatever angle of the coin flipped that you tend to have your money wagered on, which everybody seems to be big shorting me. That's why I get the hammer down nature of hammered into the ground, buried deep to shorting. Shorting being they're betting against me. But I'm the house. That's the problem. But they had to take over the house utilizing the debt bondage nature. Debt bondage is used to body snatch. Debt bondage is used to legitimize identity theft. IT, identity theft, TI. That's the flip-flop reverse because of debt bondage. Therefore, it is also because of the widespread nature of my reach and the electricity provided. So if anybody thinks about helping me escape, certain factions will come up and throw more money at them to keep the ball rolling. The Prometheus pushing the boulder up the hill constantly, searching for an escape from my moldy garage here in Savannah, where I'd rather be on the World Cup circuit or, anything. I could be building bridges to other parts of the world, but they want to keep me small. Don't you understand it? They want to shrink me down. The gummy bear smurf, reverent, because they want me to pay. They don't want me to enjoy anything. I got to be reverent to as much as possible. I'm trying to cure some ills. And the problem is they've screwed me for way, way too long. That's the problem. Well, the problem is they know I would try to escape because I realize the truth of the matter. It's all just a shit. I am literally being held for debt bondage. This has nothing to do. They tried to trap me, but I did not bite. And so therefore it is strictly a shadow game sort of mentality. So the divestiture of the estate, it seems to be, the divisive nature of these are all notes from earlier. So the bait and switch, I'm looking at the wrong page. No quiet wonder there. Okay, here we are. The license to kill Bond, James Bond, and I did have that up there for a reason. Because, like I said, I'm English and French and Jewish. Not necessarily the typical. They tried to turn me into an enemy of the state, Will Smith, because they want to haunt me. Because I have rights towards the assets that are being pillaged from my pocket. Therefore, if they turn the society against me by torturing me for years and decades, to where I'm just so furious. I mean, imagine waiting for a table for a few hours. Some of you big power players, a few hours sitting there in the lobby waiting for a table. You would be yelling, spitting, and screaming. I've been waiting 10 years plus for a table. And I own the damn restaurant. It's my house, and I can't even get in the door. 15 years, probably more. My entire life, I've been stuck out in the slave quarters doing the reverent beautician, back there in the shed where we got the beautician shed set up. That's all part of that misnomer of the name. But it's always do desecrate, you utilize the worst. But it goes from the precedence of this omega precedence, which I call it. Whereas, what is the word? That's basically the license to screw anything up. The Beastie Boys license to ill by. Therefore, you can interpret it however it best benefits those to perpetuate of the gambling heater. So, license to kill Bond, what a joke. I don't even have the license to make jokes. That's how, you know, I can't even joke about things. Because I am so exposed and so small and weak because I don't have my body. You know, I'm just like I'm in life support. I am basically in a coma and life support, like Beatrix Kiddo, and people just keep coming in. My whole family, we're basically all in life support. Anybody that you know, Buck will sell you 75 bucks. You can come in and fuck any of them you want. They've been fucking us regularly. Like he even provides the Vaseline lube to lube us up because we, you know, it's hard to get wet when you're in a coma. I guess that's the whole, you know, from that Kill Bill mentality. So we're stuck here in the coma, just barely alive. So I realize who I have a tad bit of the reality creates animosity. And the problem is, though, as I am in a coma so weak, so if I even try to make jokes about anything in order to destroy any, well, they want to destroy me mentally. In order to, they're hoping one of these days I'll just give up and say, all right, you know, this long-term mental torture is a mental conversion, brainwashing process, like Manchurian candidate. So they want to actually genetically engineer me, like the island of Dr. Moreau, into an animal pet. That's the whole. Well, if you look at lion and you look at it backwards, it's in oil. So what they've done is they flipped it over and it's for oil. They've sold, basically, they're selling my parts. So that's what, you know, the reverse of lion is oil, in oil. Basically, that's what's going on. And you can construe it in any number of ways, but if that's basically, they're selling energy share. Oil companies are still making their money. The real thing is the representational nature of the game grid, which I provide a ton of validity. I provide a ton of cash, and I provide a ton of energy to this game grid. So I'm like, not only am I in the house, but it's a rigged game to where it's just walk up and, you know, it's really rigged towards the players winning. You know, they've emancipated. You know, they're talking about emancipation of accounts from the bank or the house. They just made it really easy to win by hijacking the banker myself and rigging my system. My genetic code is the system itself, the house. So they've hacked it to where it spits up, and it's like a slot machine that pays off real easy, you know, or it's basically just a rigged slot machine sort of mentality. So what's going on, though, is it's like the Treaty of Paris, the top, which was dividing up the Ottoman Empire. And like I said, I throw in all these strange sort of factual tidbits, such as Otto, like the bus driver from The Simpsons, which they hate. Well, if you look at it, The Simpsons is derived, Homer is like BLM is my initials, and then MLB, Major League Baseball, hardball, Homer, or St. Bartholomew's, BLM. And so that I think, well, the problem is that The Simpsons have been have been on as long as we've been really depressed slaves for the most part. I mean, if we've got $1 billion in the bank and we're living on just, you know, change to provide free keys, something's really fishy there. But those that you see, they get nervous. It's like pollution. The mob loves pollution. Pollution's like this billowing smoke cloud. So it covers up to where if you're in the city or lights, lots of lights, you can't see the astronomy. The mariners, they derived patterns and sight through astronomy, which there is a reality to. Astronomy deals a lot with entertainment today, even though a lot of entertainment is hijacked and hidden, and different messages and things like that have to be interpreted with perspective, as I spoke of many sessions ago. So, right now what's going on is they are trying to access all these assets. They had to destroy Europe in order to, like I spoke about, to access all these Latin American assets. I have a vested right. I have a strong right to them. So, therefore, they must figure a way to remove me from the chain of events so they can distribute them, or if I do ever escape. That's why it's been so difficult and I've been tortured so much that I will become an enemy. I know the funny part is family. We should be benefit very much greatly, but the kidnappers have been in control and torturing us so much for war profiteering that they're selling us to. That's why we've been surrounded by, in my estimation, by politicians and therefore usurping our power. It's in order to keep it, the big game is over Latin American assets. They want to divide. That's a big buffet of steaks, and that's what they're after. And I happen to be a bank. I'm like the bank, like I said. They chopped up Italy. The Italian Americans don't seem to be real bright, or that's the horrific curse of this cat mentality, because it's always being this fickle feline sort of creature that doesn't really care, it's like herding cats, the curse of trying to herd cats. It's kind of how I feel, and they don't really care, they're not loyal at all. They would sell their soul to the system if things go wrong, so they'll always land. It's this damn idea of idiom of landing on your feet, but if you drop from too high, you're still going to break your legs or go splat on the concrete. And they're way up there right now, if you know what I mean. So, instead of the transference of assets, it's the transfer of assets it's been hijacked. I think it specifically has something to do with the Trade Center also, because the system itself, what they're trying to do is control that vast. It's about a fourth or a fifth of the entire global world economy, and so they want to control that strictly through in order to validate all the other. Quantity washes money real easy, because you can't really question it. If you ever want to, print more cash, that always makes it look better because the previous cash looks more legit if you got more cash going on. So, me being a capital principal of Louisiana water boy, Mr. Deeds, just go with it though, and they did go with it because, how these fickle, crazy, stupid, and everybody wants. The funny part about what was that movie with Ben Affleck, written by Kevin Smith, Jersey Girl, and they did the talent show for the kids, and this was a really smart statement. Every one of the kids did Cats by memory of doing their talent show, and then Ben Affleck's kid did the Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber. But every other one, and the motive, the thought process is everybody's just trying to say, it's at one of those veiled threats, memory, if you screw us over, we're going to land on our feet. But then it's who's the real cat, so you got the battle of who screwed over, who screwed, revenge. That's what it's all about, wrath and revenge, in which that is the whole, it's a very smart point done, but so, me being one with the most pride to lose, therefore I give it away, like they shave and scalp me and distribute me for fairways or for all sorts of things, weak and vulnerable, because I actually have a vested stake. I have a lot of access. So therefore, and they're trying to hide it as energy or something, but it has nothing to do with it. They just throw it in there with energy in order to be able to do it. But debt bondage is the key. Dependency debt bondage. And I'm also being a beautician for Georgia, being a debtor's penal colony, therefore. So I beautified that, wow, what a shitty fucking investment that turned out to be, right, Matty Ice? Not even nothing. I mean, 2 years of absolute zero, nothing. I mean, wasted time. Can't even get a secretary. I know. And thankfully, it was funny, like Quentin Tarantino tonight, after he won for Best Screenplay, talked about how important it was for him to be able to get feedback and utilize people as their soundboard, because you just get, I don't know, it really is important. So and it goes back to that Entourage song about Need You Desperately by Jane's Addiction, and everybody knows it, but if anybody is left alone with no money, no resources, or no friends or anything, they're not really going to get a lot accomplished. And especially me, somebody who has bad ADHD that has hampered me all my entire life, but they don't care. I'm paying off. They've already speared and stabbed and, dug all the wells into me. So now I'm paying off. Now they just have to sit back and collect all the, collect all the juice that runs off of it. So debt bondage, therefore, beautifies it, because it's not just like stealing a wallet. What they did to me was they forced me to be, that's where the insider, the clean handler insider is. So now I owe him for the college diplomas from LSU and Southeastern, and my sister's, which is the big one, for her sorority, and she had a house on Potomac, which Potomac River, we all know about that, right next to SMU, and her sorority and SMU diploma, which is therefore, and they're not necessarily saying anything about it, but it's their comrades in arms in the shadow gangs that are utilizing it. Therefore, it's not just a one-to-one relationship about there's no papers on it or anything like that, but it's the implied loan shark contract going in the back door saying, well, our buddy here, who's a member of our crew, has a contract, so therefore we can utilize that access. We can, it's a good for the goose, good for the gander, golden rule sort of mentality. And that's what's going on. That's why, like, I went to, if I go to public schools, everybody in that public school, therefore, has the same rights as me. Even though the math is really crooked. But since I have such deep pockets, they have figured out a way to make the math add up. So therefore, that's part of the reason a lot of my global that's why I am used. I mean, there aren't many people, and this is a rare theoretical case. Like I said, theoretically still, that I theoretically have these huge deep pockets that I'm used for. Therefore, I'm stuck in these golden rule scenarios where whatever I use, every other member, and then it's the game ranks. And then I'm usually lowered down the ranks because I didn't, there's always different hierarchy ranks that have higher access to that sort of access to the power. And then they've got to protect themselves through healthcare that I provide also, and through insurance to protect the risk management, as you would. So the debt bondage ramifications, sacrifices a bribe, and it's healthcare rank schemes that are basically piled upon. And I think it all goes back to, like I said, reverent lessons. When I was a kid, I was wild. I had really bad bouncing around the room by fish is one song. I was just constantly hyperactive, running around, and then I got real excited real easy because a lot of the time there wasn't a lot excited, and so, and then I listened to things. I can remember I listened to AC/DC in elementary school. I used to have a radio. I remember bringing AC/DC Back in Black on this little cassette tape radio to the school in the school bus. I used to listen to the Clash Combat Rock. I had a record club, and I had really good taste for being in elementary school, junior high. The Clash, Judas Priest probably cost me more than anything. The whole notion of Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, the Hellion, all those probably cost me a ton. Obviously, because I was an important asset. They didn't tell me. They didn't say, hey, look. Nobody came up and said, hey, look, you are important. You need to quit that, because I think they thought I would have gotten a big head, and then it would have been even harder to control. So that's where you got into the free range, tornado, Tasmanian devil. So I was spiraling off. So I got into all sorts. What else did I have? Styx, The Grand Illusion. I had really good taste in music. Steve Miller Band, Fly Like an Eagle. I used to remember I had that 45. I used to play all the time. Kiss was probably when I was into really, but that they're haunting me now to the degree to whereas those people that are in the law, because that was devil music, Knights in Sacred Service, Satan's Service, Kiss. Now the law has used a lot. That's that golden rule sort of mentality of reciprocity, empathy, while I'm forced into the law now, which is utilizing my assets globally, or figuring all these loopholes, utilizing that same sort of principle. That's the whole insane clown posse that have just gone off the deep end. And, oh, I'm throwing some other things. The Home Alone thing is my stepfather's eldest son, Kevin, and they were all KCs, was valedictorian of my high school. And after they got married when I was like a freshman in college, and I was a raging alcoholic and just lost. Didn't know anything, was overwhelmed, so I didn't really know anything that was going on. And I was in a different state. So, but supposedly, I've never talked to the guy, but his name's Kevin, like Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. So, supposedly, they've got excommunicated, and he won't speak to him. I don't know. Like I said, there are two other Casey kids who, still communicate. Yet, I think because of the debt bondage, now that I'm a slave, I am forced to be, that's where the Home Alone thing comes into as reverence. Even though, and I understand, I'm not saying, but we're talking about, I have a bank to worry about, but my bank has been lifted and utilized, so it's just, that's another one of the beautician sort of things. That's where I go into the Kevin McAllister Home Alone sort of mentality. Why a Lone Star, Home Alone Star State sort of mentality. And unable to, as the Doctor Who revenge, also, it's because of debt bondage, which is also the beautifier there for Georgia and Australia, which they are definitely working together because of the penal debt colony beautifiers there. And well, what they've done with my sister is my sister's assets are distributed through Indiana with her sorority, and there is which Indiana is a big, well, that's where Notre Dame, South Bend is. Indianapolis, the Lucas Oil Dome, and Sally Mae has offices there, which is below the NCAA. Helmets are huge. Like Argo, ARG stands for air gas, which is a air company. They make surgical anesthetics. They make atmospheric gases. They do all sorts of gases. They also make hard hats and safety gear in Radnor Township, Pennsylvania, which happens to be where Lincoln Financial is, which sponsors the Philadelphia Eagles football stadium. See, there's this. They're trying to equip people like stormtroopers at my expense using this magic connectivity. That's part of why this grid's so expensive. You've got the nuclear IV-4 in Cowboy Stadium, and you got all sorts of cowboy interpretations. Or if you got a star, you got protection of a helmet based on Fenway Partners, which owns Rydell, well, the Berg, Bell, Easton, Rydell, and Giro, which does mostly ski gear, ski helmets, and bike stuff. So in Radnor Township, you've got you've got Eastern University. There were several other things that were specifically connected to air gas, Lincoln Financial, and but there's something really strange about how they're trying to basically equip everybody with an extra skull. That's those invisible exoskeletons, the force field around individuals. Well, the reason they need them is because they realize they've made mistakes and they've got to protect themselves from faulty logic. So these helmets are sort of weapons against being able to faulty logic. Spin doctor. What it's all about is the spin doctor. When you're making stuff up, if you've got a helmet protecting your head, which provides your thought processes, therefore it'll change the environment to make what your spin doctor right by usually printing cash. Printing cash usually can solve any problem. That's the Goodwill Hunting miracle, plus me, because I've got deep, deep pockets to print tons of cash. And then you can bribe the populace, or you can change how they think, brainwashing entire sectors to make what, through these helmets, are weapons, like the alien weapons that are trying to make everything right. And while they are seizing control of different factions of the property. So the transference of power out of me, then desecrating the source, the ravaged natural, like when they ravage the state through natural, but they're basically just wasting me to where not utilizing any of my natural abilities. I've literally wasted the 15 years of the prime of my life doing nothing except standing around as a chump slave doing nothing. And so, but it's validating the clones. Those that are, and the validation of the clones is all that matters because image is so important. So therefore, the source, weak and vulnerable. I've always got to be weak and vulnerable. So therefore, anything that stands in my way will knock me down. That's good for business in these aspects of being able to figure exactly what's. It is very cultish to a degree. And so I've wanted to audit the contributions of the family's estate, but I'm unallowed. See, it's just all about these attachments. You know, it's all about figuring ways. It's the match game attachment to where if you've got a similar, well, it's not, you got to have credibility. That's why they're also building it up. Another thing I discovered I was looking at with the healthcare is, and it's like a game of battle. Whoever's got the highest card wins, or a poker hand sort of mentality. Poker face really has a lot to do with it. But what they've done is they've taken a lot of individuals, and this country is heavily, heavily invested in universities. Like 60 of the top 120 universities in the world, we're talking about, are at all in the United States. 60 of the top 120. There's a reason for that. Therefore, so what they've done is, and this is part of the helmets protecting them, the necessity to be so competitive and to expand so, to be so predatory. It's like a plague, a locust plague disease. You have to expand because you got flawed logic at the base, but you got your magic helmet that'll make you expand and give you tons of cash for it. So you take all of these individuals, and I'll use Louisiana just as my case study, and therefore you go to the universities, and you take these normal individuals that are worth, let's say, $1,000 a head, like cap, use that mentality, because you do worship heads as far as one person, one vote, as far as being the prevalence to justify what's going on in society. So head of cattle is what it's really like. It's feedlot. But you are really using some huge HGH, human growth hormones in this steroids. I mean, they're juicing up huge with these degrees, and they keep building and building and building certain sectors, therefore validating them. But what's going on is, though, the healthcare is derived through, let's say, there's a lot of Catholic healthcare in the United States, and Catholic healthcare is also connected to one big Catholic church grid, which covers Latin America, which covers Europe. Well, in Europe, you don't necessarily have as many percentages of, not everybody goes to school just to go to school. A lot of people just, have normal jobs, but another reason is when you go to university, that's one of those wedges that drives people apart, sort of mentality. So the family falls apart, whereas in a lot of the old world, people don't necessarily leave home because they get a job, they don't go, or they stay around, just do, they maintain it's preservation, historical and heritage. Yet that's not deemed important in the strip mall, suburbia sprawl sort of thing. It's all about how big can you get in your feedlot. Let's get as greedy as possible, get as big as you can, pile on the gravy, that sort of mentality. So you're deriving a lot of health care to these individuals. So what you've got is around a lot of the country, a lot of the world, this network that provides of this Catholic healthcare into. And there is a lot of Catholic healthcare, and there's a lot of Catholic. But what you're doing is you've got this ranked system. So you've got these ranked individuals who it's like $1,000 turned into $100,000, but it's real suspect, the real valuation of how you got that 1,000 to 100,000. So the healthcare will help you maintain your ranking. And the higher ranked you are outranking others. So therefore, healthcare has become competitive. There's a ebb and their flow. There's a string theory pull from certain individuals or certain groups into other groups pertaining to rank, access, and power. That's why universities are so important in the United States and their higher ranking, because it supersedes the power. So therefore, it's a huge energy drain, especially from Latin America, which doesn't have near the level of higher education, or from Europe, which doesn't have near the percentages of people that are going for these. But the problem is, you got to justify this because it's my bank coming through me a lot of the time, and that's one of the heavy-duty sort of flows of influx of asset justification is utilizing healthcare as a weapon. Not to mention the pharmaceutical industry is a whole different string theory weaponry sort of mentality. So that's just all theoretical. It's engineered slaughterhouses as far as, well, then once you've got these high ranks and you've got cash to validate them, and you've got a four-bedroom house and a two-car garage, and you got other kids, it's stabilized, and then you get helmets to protect you from, these stormtrooper armor that you get to wear that's, provided through these systematic sort of things, and it's just really suspect as far as trying to figure out what's going on. So that's basically it. And I am unable to utilize any of my own power because I give so much, and I give it to where I'm in a coma, and I'm unable to dig myself out of this hole because so many people are reliant upon me because they gambled on me being a slave rather than me being paid. It would be like going to the energy company and deciding, well, we're not going to pay you anything, but we're going to hold you hostage, but you got to keep providing us energy. So, and they pay people to keep it flowing, but they don't pay the company to where it just goes bankrupt. But it's a revolution, an anarchy sort of scenario where they're just not paying their bills, and I can't afford to maintain the structure of my business. So that seems to be my evening for that.